coming to get you, Barbara.
Here's some money. Go see a Star War.
But I'm trying, Ringo. I'm trying real hard to be the shepherd.
All right, Stan, you have one more shot to get this intro right. Go for it.
Welcome back to Long Walk Talks. My name is Stan Wilson Lee. I'm the VP of Long Walk Productions.
It's okay. It's okay.
And I am joined tonight by my two co-hosts, Chris Wilson Barnes and David Wilson Hensley.
Thank you, Stan. That was the closest you have come to getting it right. I am so proud of you.
Yay, pride.
Oh, welcome back to Long Walk Talks. Before we dive into the discussion of Stan's next Perfect 10 film.
I have a note from my mom that says I'm excused.
Oh, okay.
Gotta go.
All right.
Me too. No.
Oh, you want to leave me talking about this film by myself? That's going to get real weird.
Put Katie on speaker.
Yeah, Katie would love to talk about it. Before we get started with discussing the film, I want to give a quick trigger warning to our listeners, which is not something I've had to do on an episode in a long time, but there's a lot of controversial, disturbing stuff in this film, which includes attempted rape, and incest, and I'm trying to think of, I had this list composed earlier of all the weird shit that's in this movie, but those are the two big ones. We're going to be discussing...
octopus eating?
There is an octopus being eaten, but there's also an attempted rape scene, and the plot also heavily involves incest. So if any of those topics might be too much for you, we completely understand. We'll catch you on the next episode. Stan, tell us about your fourth Perfect 10 film pick.
I think you just did. I think we're done.
Oh, wow. This was the shortest. An episode that's just a trigger warning.
It kind of is. Anyway, this is South Korean film, Oldboy. Chan-wook Park is director. It's the inspiration for many of the great action films to come since then. It was 2003 is this when this came out, so it was like early on in the... I'm going to say it's the progenitor of the close quarters hallway fighting with multiple... Opponents, yes. Because there's been fights in close quarters, but usually it's one at a time. You know, got the first person, you kick them out, and the next person comes in, kick them out, and you got close quarters in the sense that you can't reach too far and you can't fly too far in the sense of kung fu films where a lot of that is based on the fact of how far can you fly to kick somebody in the head. But in this sense, Oldboy is probably the beginning of the realistic one man against 90 in a hallway.
I just want to point out, I mentioned this to Dave on the ride over. This is what I heard about all the time when people would talk to me or mention Oldboy.
This is what most people know this movie for, is the very famous 3-minute long single take hallway fight.
Yes.
One man with a hammer versus a bunch of opponents with knives and machetes and various things.
And I was like, I just hear about that from Oldboy. I never hear anything else, and then that was the before time when my world was a simpler, better place before having watched it.
Yeah, more innocent. Everyone talks about the hallway fight. No one ever talks about the surprise incest.
I feel like this movie should come with a pamphlet that says, "So you've watched Revenge-cest."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I was telling Chris, it's been about 10 years since I watched it. I remembered the beats of the plot. I remembered what the film was about. So none of that was a surprise to me, obviously, but I forgot a lot of the details about this movie and how fucked up it is. Before we dive into the discussion topics, let's very briefly describe the plot, because I feel like this is one of the more obscure films we've talked about, despite the fact that it did have a remake in 2014.
A Spike Lee remake.
The Spike Lee remake with Josh Brolin as the main character. But even that movie wasn't seen by a whole lot of people. So,
It's a really good remake. I will say that. It's a really good American version of...
Well, prior to rewatching the 2003 Korean film, I had said, I don't need to see the American remake. I don't see any point in watching it. Now it's just morbid curiosity. If I can find it streaming free somewhere, I might watch it just to satisfy the curiosity. But essentially, Oldboy is about a troubled man named Odai-soo, who is... a father and an alcoholic and a ne'er-do-well who gets himself arrested, and then shortly after his friend gets him out, he finds himself captured and imprisoned again, this time in what appears to be a hotel room where his food is delivered to him and there are no exits and no windows, no way to tell the passage of time except for a television, and he is kept there for 15 years. And upon being released, sets out on a roaring rampage of revenge. That's the plot of the film in a nutshell, minus the insanity that follows after that. So, Stan, what is our first discussion topic?
Well, the first discussion topic is probably the reason why all this ugliness can happen. And I basically titled, "So yeah, fuck hypnosis, eh?"
Okay, well, if we're talking about like somebody being hypnotized to quit smoking, then, hypnotism has as its purpose. If we're talking about like an amusement show act where you hypnotize an audience member into barking like a dog, then sure, that's entertaining.
But the thing is, what I mean by the fuck hypnosis is that, yeah, all that stuff can be entertaining, but the thing is, that thing of suggestion is always going to be there, no matter if it's entertainment or not. And the fact that somebody can be that horrible to get into somebody's head that much to get them to
fuck their daughter
and eat live octopuses.
If hypnosis was in any way as effective as presented in this film, I'm pretty sure large portions of history would be different. And there'd be a lot less people smoking, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're talking about fantastical realism.
It is fantastical realism, but the idea that if somebody is that open to suggestion, there is that. I mean, before this we have Manchurian Candidate.
Oh, yeah,
so it's like and that's under duress and continued torture and everything like that. But this is 15 years that this gentleman was captured, and I put quotes around gentleman just to let you know. And but the idea that the suggestion was deep, and
also toward the end,
is
when the villain's laying out his plan, he does conveniently add that, turns out Daisu and Mido are also two of the most easily receptive to hypnosis ever.
Yes. Convenient. Yeah, I mean, like you brought up the Manchurian Candidate. That kind of post-hypnotic suggestion, like you said, takes place where you're under a lot of duress and your mind is being...
Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, Clockwork Orange. Your mind is being broken down.
You're being traumatized into
yes.
it, yeah.
It doesn't happen when you've been drugged and are sleeping, like gassed and are sleeping peacefully. Or in the case of Mido, literally just having a conversation with a hypnotist. The way that it's presented in the movie is that Mido and the hypnotist were just sitting down having a conversation.
You're exactly right in the sense that it is an extreme hyper-real version of the extent of hypnotism, but it is commenting on the possibility that this could be more and be used for more than just having people quit smoking.
And yet
so that's I'm just saying that there is basis for the awfulness that happens.
And yet this fantastical portion of the movie is the least batshit.
Right. And also, like, I wonder what I cannot remember the villain's name. Does anyone remember?
No.
Xu-Wen?
I wonder what his pitch to this hypnotist was like, because you can walk up and be like, so listen, I need you to hypnotize me so that anytime I pick up a cigarette, I get a feeling of revulsion because I want to quit smoking. No, this man had to sit down with a professional hypnotist and be like, all right, the job is twofold. I need you to convince a grown man to not recognize his daughter and also give the suggestion that he wants to have sex with his daughter. And then okay. And also I need you to go to his daughter, make her not recognize her father, and also give her the suggestion that she wants to have sex with him.
She starts getting up. She's like, okay, and starts getting like, no, sit down. We're not done.
There's more.
He brings out a stack of papers.
Yeah.
And then,
like, I want to know more about this morally gray hypnotist who's like, you know what? It's a challenge. I have never hypnotized.
We only get to see her. We only get to see her at the end when she comes back to rehypnotize.
Well, we see her in flashbacks.
I get the feeling as good
I guess
as,
we do it.
As
Yeah.
good as we see her like 3 times. One when she's hypnotizing him before getting released. The second in flashbacks, and the third at the end.
Yeah.
And I get the feeling if she's as the hypnotist she's presented as, she doesn't hurt for anything, but she can just hypnotize people into giving her shit.
Right. Like at that point, if you are that good as a hypnotist, you could just
She's fucking
walk
the
up.
Scarlet Witch, is what she is.
Oh yeah, you could just walk up to somebody and be like, "Hey, how's it going? You having a good day? Give me $10 million. Do you have any pets? I'd really like to meet one of your pets."
Wait, go back a couple. What was it?
Are you having a good day?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's not the sort of hypnosis that you see on.
Of course not. That's not what I'm. But the idea that.
But
torture can lead. 15 years of deprivation can lead to a lot of shit. So.
Right, and I'm just saying that fuck hypnosis is a hard stance to take.
Also an odd one to take with everything else happening.
And just at the thought that I may be that susceptible.
Is that what you're worried about?
I say no to hypnosis whenever anybody suggests it. It's like
you're worried about what they might suggest you do.
It's a good thing that I have convinced myself not to ever really smoke. I mean, I have things I smoke, but
do you smoke after sex? I don't know. I've never looked.
I've never looked. I don't smoke cigarettes regularly. It's like
What he's saying is the first time he watched this, he might have mentally split into 2 people. But the idea, and one of them died.
The idea that I haven't had to be hypnotized into ending any of my vices, and there's probably some I probably should be hypnotized in the ending, but the idea that I'm not causing enough damage to myself or to others to justify me saying, yeah, please hypnotize me and put me under your control.
Well, I think it has its place in the end. Like Dave was kind of saying earlier, it has its place. Like, obviously, you can't really actually like rewrite someone's entire brain with this, but it can help just kind of set up the aversion, the desire to want to avoid this thing that you feel compelled to.
And there were a lot of other things that he experienced in those 15 years to. Because he was shown stuff on TV. Again, I could have said TV, fuck TV, because he spent 15 years learning how to do stuff again by watching TV, and it's like I'm going to remember how to do this. So when he does release me, I'll know how to react into society. So he learned how to do stuff, and then. But the things that were being shown, we don't know if what he was being shown on the TV was actually the actual stuff on TV, or it could have been canned stuff being piped into his TV set to go along with the rest of the stuff that he was being.
That's a valid point, and I will accept your argument in the case of Odaisu being conditioned to accept this hypnosis. What about Mido, his daughter? Because
she was also super suggestive, as the bad guy said.
Apparently.
That's all you get.
Because of the trauma that she experienced, because she grew up thinking her father killed her mother or tried to kill them all, and he gets up, thinking, oh, I killed my wife, or people think I killed my wife, so I have to, if I get out of this, I'm going to, clear my name. But the idea that, and he didn't know, she was like, what, 2 or 3 when her ma died, or was killed, so it's like
at the youngest. If we want this to be less weird,
no, that's what the villain says at the end. I've been raising your daughter since she was 3.
Yeah,
and so her idea of her father was the guy that had captured her dad and raised her, so it's like, and he'd been putting stuff into her head and her traumatized brain for blah, 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 blah. So she also had as much, and he trained her to be a sushi chef, so I don't know.
Bastard.
I don't know what that's called. And the thing is, it was so specific is that allowed because that's how they meet, all this stuff could happen because
it could have been vegetarian.
But the idea that he put all the receipts in the food, to show. So it's like when he does get out, he's going to go to that place or find that place and meet her. And so it's like there is. I mean, the idea that yes, it is at the far extreme of Manchurian Candidate shit. But the idea that, and that's why I'm just saying is like, at the risk that I'm that susceptible to long-term overtake, it's like, fuck that.
Man, if the villain put half as much effort into just finding someone who looked like his sister, this wouldn't have happened.
Agreed. Two things before we move on, just so that we stop saying like the villain or the antagonist. His name is Wu Jin.
Wu Jin.
I'd forgotten about that. And also...
But let's never forget Wu Jin's a villain.
Yes. And also, before we move on to the next topic, Stan, you don't have like a long-lost daughter that neither of us know about, do you?
Several?
Okay, so that explains a lot about why you're worried about hypnosis.
Well, it's like being adopted. I don't, anybody I could meet.
Because you're
related.
about the same age as Odai Sue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, in 2003, wow.
That explains nothing. All right.
Yeah, that was just a non sequitur. All right, what's our next discussion?
Because 2003 is when I came here, remember?
I didn't know you in 2003, but
yeah,
we're just going to agree and move along. All right, so what's our
What
next
color
topic?
suitcase were you in?
Orange. Okay, I pretty much because of what we had to. It's like anything else is going to be. These are totally innocuous topics now because you guys are already set up on the really horrible stuff. The second one that I guess is like the host. There's a lot of slapstick elements to this. I don't know how Chris is going to answer this, but this is great. Does the humor enhance or diminish again the power of the payoffs that come later?
Chris, you take this one first.
The humor is the only thing keeping my attention.
Okay.
Because this plot just turns into insane gobbledygook. I don't care how well it's done. It is. It's just insane that all of this is set up just for. It's nuts. The levity is there, I think, just because I said this to Dave on the way over. I think it's like Shakespeare. He's playing for the cheap seats and everything in between. That's fine because, of course, nothing can be a straight drama. Nothing in life ever is a straight drama. There's moments of levity and there's little lighthearted moments about how things unfold, even serious things. And that's fine. I didn't, that's always a good little gag here and there will. Ease the tension that some people can feel. Those gags kind of slide off toward the end.
They do.
When we're supposed to deeply, deeply care about how much that guy loved his sister. Wu Jin.
So you're bringing it back to Wu Jin. So it's like, are we supposed? I know.
Before he shoots himself in the head. Spoilers. We are treated to his memory of his sister's death, where he tearfully tries to keep her from falling into the dam, and they played it way too straight and way too emotional for me to think anything other than, oh, they want me to sympathize with him.
Well, Quentin Tarantino famously has said that last scene was the most surprising to him out of everything because it made him care about someone who up to that point he had detested.
Oh, I didn't. You know why?
Because I detested him.
Because he's a fucking asshole who spent his life ruining another man just because It could have been anybody who saw them in that fucking classroom, fucking.
Like
my thing is that the protagonist, Odaisu, he told his buddy, and it was actually his buddy that kicked off the rumors. But the thing is, if Odaisu hadn't told him, those rumors wouldn't have
but honestly,
gestated so hard. So it's like, I don't know. It's like
they weren't inconspicuous. They would have gotten found out.
They would have gotten found out, but and the
also
idea that because Odaisu was leaving the school, he was done. he was out. So it's like he didn't have to cause this issue with this guy. So it's like, so this is the only way I had sympathy for the villain, Wu Jin, is because but yeah, it's like he saw this stuff, but because he was
that was the most non-answer you've ever given.
It was on because he was his sister's protector and everything, and it's like, but then
if he was such a good protector, he'd have found a room that didn't have windows.
Right. What if a study group had shown up? Guys, we need to use the library. Oh my God!
All I can do is think that they know that this is hardly ever frequented. Nobody ever comes to this building, and it's like
lots of people come in that building apparently.
But
at least two.
At least two.
Look, it's like the saying goes: if you're going to be dumb, you got to be tough.
But the thing is that okay, I can understand. It's like it was a lot of time he spent on this, but the thing is that the idea that he has transferred all the blame of his sister's death onto Odaisu. So it's like, I'm not sure if I would have had that much because I can be vindictive, but I don't know if I have 15 years.
No, this man is a sociopath.
Yeah, I'm close to sociopathology in a lot of aspects.
No, you're
but
not.
No,
you're not.
But
you like to think you are. But all right. So all that said, yes, it is understandable that given the circumstances of his sister's death, he would be vengeful. He'd be spiteful.
Because he kills the buddy in the internet room, so it's like it should have been done right there.
Well, that's because he repeated. He told shit again.
Yep.
But honestly, who amongst us, if we were in high school and caught somebody we knew fucking their sister, how many of us would have just sat on that and never brought it up versus, oh my God, did you know Steve from biology is fucking his sister? Anybody who caught them was going to spread that rumor.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it was.
But not just anybody did.
Not just anybody did, and I'm assuming they had, whether Odaisu knew it or not, because they were part of the same circle of friends. They had history, and it wasn't very friendly.
The moment I didn't have much sympathy for the guy to begin with. But the moment I knew this guy was up his own ass, Wu Jin.
Yeah.
The moment I knew he was up his own ass was when he tells Odaisu, "Your tongue killed my sister." No, it did not.
Yeah. We've gotten way the fuck off topic. The question was, did the humor diminish or enhance the movie?
Well, I'll tell you, it did enhance, and in fact, there is a moment in the final sequence that is very funny, which is Odaisu charges Mr. Han to try and take him out to get to Wu Jin, and Mr. Han proceeds to judo throw him through every piece of glass in that area.
I agree.
Almost through the window.
There were some like actual funny moments in the movie to me, but it's telling that right now I can't remember what a single one of them was.
At the end of the hallway fight, when the elevator door opens and he smiles.
Yeah, that's good.
And at the beginning, after he's released, and he has the two moments of whether the TV training worked, and he gets attacked by the one gang, and he said, does the voiceover comes in, does the training
15
work?
years of fake training prepare you for a real fight? Yeah.
And he kicks their ass, so yeah, it does. And then it's bookended by and I finally figured out why she lets it happen, but the idea, because she's hypnotized too, so that was part of the plan. And but the idea when he goes, does 15 years of fake training and the ways of wooing a woman work? No, it doesn't. When he goes and attacks her in the
on the surface, it's a clever payoff to that joke, but in the context of the scene, it is not funny because I mean that is the attempted rape that I mentioned at the beginning. Like, had he awkwardly leaned in to kiss her, or like put his arm around her, or flashed a bad pickup line at her, then that line, that repeating of that line, could have been funny. But in the moment itself, no, it was not. But as to whether or not it diminishes the film, I feel like I can't say because I made the mistake of watching this movie with the English dub instead of the subtitles. And the English dub of Oldboy is fucking terrible. So I feel like a lot of things that might have been funny on their own were not funny because of the terrible dubbing. So, but I mean, yes, there were funny moments. I just don't remember what they are now in the face of all the other weird shit that happens.
It had the same problem as the host. Is like they would play it like that, but then when it was time for it to be serious drama or serious tension, then it was there and only like they when they lean into a mood, it's like that's the only mood that exists right now.
Did you think that was better for this?
No. I
So
mean, overall, no.
Because for the host, that it took it to too many places, you know, in the sense, and
I think the host handled it better.
You think? Okay.
I do.
All right.
I will say honestly, I do think the humor when it hit enhanced it, especially at the beginning when Odaisu was being released from being drunk and disorderly, and the police captain goes, "I don't want to see you back here," and he goes, "That's not up to you, asshole."
That's not up to you, asshole.
Yeah, I agree. But on the surface, no, I don't. It's just another level of weird in a movie that is already overwrought with weird.
Well, up until the point where it was time for the plot to conclude, it was kind of like weird slice of life.
Yeah.
And then it was kickstarted into the intense drama.
I'm starting to realize now that much like a lot of the films that we've discussed, it sounds like I hate this movie. I really do appreciate and enjoy Oldboy, but when we sit down to discuss it critically, there's a lot of fucking weird shit in here.
Again, it's like I guess I'm just jaded to weirdness or something, but
that's the title of your autobiography.
Because I guess I had a lot of weird shit going up into this movie, so it's like it was hard because I'd seen The Isle before this movie, so. And if you want really intensely weird South Korean stuff, yeah, go see The Isle.
After The Host and Oldboy, I've reached my limit on weird South Korean films for a while. Get back to me in like 3 or 4 months, and then maybe I'll be open to watching another weird South Korean film. Right now,
but you're all good with Takeshi Miyake, though. Man.
I know, but this
no. That's a hard no.
I mean, you have to admit, this movie puts the South in South Korean.
Wow. That was good, Chris. Well done. No, I am not good on Takashi Miyake. He has made some good films. He has also made some fucking bonkers shit that I will never watch again. I watched Ichi the fucking Killer. That movie was so bananas and so out there. And
I'm watching that again, actually.
Oh, why?
I've seen reviews of that. From the sound of it, it's a movie that is so bonkers that you either love it or hate it.
Exactly, and I hated it.
Yeah.
The title card of the movie,
yeah,
Ichi the Killer, is splayed out in a man's sperm after he finishes jacking off. Like he ejaculates, and the ejaculate spells out the Korean words for Ichi the Killer. Like it sets the tone for what weird shit you're about to watch right off the bat, which good for it. Get it out early. You know what you're watching, but still, we're not talking about Ichi the Killer.
We're not.
What's our next topic, Stan?
I think we've actually covered this, but my third thing was, is Oldboy's controversy still controversial?
Yes.
Yes. Point blank end of discussion. Yeah.
Even after what we've had, even in American films
Yes.
since then, is it, you know, 'cause,
Yes.
I mean, everybody does the hallway scenes, everybody does.
Right.
But the idea that we might not have live octopus eating in American films yet. And it's like,
Just to hammer it home, the plot of the movie is a guy hypnotizes and uses various extensive, underhanded, and horribly ruthless methods to basically erase a man, release him back into the world, have him and his daughter reunite, not know they're each other, and fall in love.
And fuck. Just so that he can eventually tell the protagonist, Odaisu, oh, hey, I made you fuck your daughter because you caught me fucking my sister.
Who he dearly, dearly loved.
Yes. Do the controversies still stand up 19, almost 20 years later? Yes, 100%. I have not once seen an American film as fucked up as any of the foreign films that I have watched. All right, we want to talk about like disturbing cinema. We did it was our very first episode, but there are no American films that I am immediately aware of that I can think of that top the weirdness of something like a Serbian film or Ichi the Killer or Martyrs. All these European or Asian films, I cannot think of a single film that tops the fucked up weirdness of
Hostel.
any of them. Not Hostel was just a gore fest. These other films,
Hostel 2 then.
also just like a love of gore and schlock.
But they're
disturbing. Yes.
And then you have stuff like Clockwork Orange, which came way before. But is it the same type of?
It's worth pointing out that we're talking about this
Eyes
movie.
Wide Shut.
They didn't, unlike other movies that you've just named, they didn't pull this idea out of thin air. This was adapted from a manga.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A long-running manga that was.
Yeah, Japanese in origin.
Yeah.
The setting was changed to South Korea for the film.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious what else this author has been up to. No, I would just be curious.
I was wondering if that was the setup to a joke. Sorry.
No, sadly, I didn't do any research.
I didn't either. You bring up Clockwork Orange, and like, yeah, there's some disturbing stuff in that film, and that's obviously that is what like the legacy of a Clockwork Orange is the disturbing moments of it. But a lot of that stuff has, in the time since its release, become like a pop culture zeitgeist. Like whenever you see a character with the things holding their eyeballs open while they're being fed all this subliminal imagery, or whenever you see somebody like in a white bowler hat with a cane dancing around singing in the rain, you know those things. That is a Clockwork Orange.
It's zeitgeist enough that I am pretty sure, I can't name things off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure I've seen the movie theater eyes held open thing in like kids stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But I have never seen of a reveal like you fucked your daughter, ha ha ha, played off as like a pop culture joke. Like, remember, everyone's seen Oldboy, right? You remember this joke that we're referencing? That's pretty funny, right? No, you just don't see shit like that.
I agree with that, but the idea that I guess what the difference is that I'm not. Yes. The hypnotism, the entrapment into committing incest with your daughter is integral to the plot of this movie. Ideally, we don't know that's the case until the end. But after 20-something years, we all know that's what Oldboy's about. But the idea that, and we haven't talked about yet. He goes back, Odaisu goes back to the hypnotist after he finds out all the stuff.
Wouldn't you?
To
remove all the new memories because he may be wrong.
He just has to remove the knowledge that that's his daughter.
That's his daughter because he legitimately is in love and wants to pursue.
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
That's the really fucked up part is there is no moment of catharsis for Daisu. The villain basically wins.
Mm-hmm.
even though he honors his end of the deal after he accepts Daisu's groveling apology,
And kills himself.
and kills himself after his emotional montage.
Honestly, telling his henchman not to open the box for Mito is
Yeah.
the only nice thing that
Right.
Woo-jin does the entire movie.
It
It's
is.
his only moment of humanity.
It's the honor amongst thieves,
That man has no honor.
But the idea
Right.
but there is,
He's lawful
he made a
evil at
promise, he fulfilled a promise.
Right, he's lawful evil.
He's lawful evil, yes, but
Yeah.
it's still honor amongst thieves, the idea.
Well, that's arguable. Like honor among thieves
Or
is like,
honor amongst really fucked up murderers, so.
sure.
No, the honor among thieves moment is when he gives that guy a new giant prison. For
Yeah.
New Giant Prison and
I want to talk about that before we're done.
oh, we haven't talked about the teeth yet, have we? And
We haven't
the
talked-
removal of the hand.
Yeah, no.
But the thing is again,
There was a behanding.
there was a behanding. Excuse me, I'm
For those listeners who don't know, that was an inside joke
was
to
a
a
very
show that
inside
I
joke.
produced that Stan was in, that a friend of ours directed, called A Behanding in Spokane by Martin McDonough. It's a great stage play. If if a company around you is ever producing it, you should see it. That's horribly off topic. Yeah, Chris brought up off air when we were on our way here. We're guilty of this with everything. We talk about so many topics off air that then we get to sit down and do the recording. Invariably, every single time we leave, and I'm like, "Fuck! I wanted to talk about this thing that
I
we
forgot
talked
to
about."
talk about blank, yeah.
But Chris brought up that if you remove the surprise incest element of the plot, it could have just been a regular thriller.
You can make this not incestual, and it would still work, yeah.
It would still work, but this movie would not be as well remembered or as
No, of
highly
course not.
regarded as it is if you took away that specific plot point.
No,
Because that is ultimately the thing that people remember about, even more so. Like, people talk about the
It's
hallway
a Sixth
fight.
Sense moment.
Yeah, people talk about the hallway fight when they talk about this movie just because it's more polite in general conversation. Be like, oh shit. And when he had that hammer and he was beating those guys, then it'd be like, oh man, yeah. When he was fucking his daughter, can I get some more coffee, please? Thank you. And then, like, the bad guy turned out he was fucking his sister. Oh, thank you very much. Can I get some cream with that also? And anyway, he was totally finger blasting his sister at their high school.
Why do you have this recording of Quentin Tarantino?
I really don't think those revelations were supposed to be the popular culture zeitgeist. I mean, yes, it's part of what is memorable about the film, but the idea that yes, it is a surprise, but
Memorable. It's the linchpin of the plot.
Are you saying that surprise incest is not a surprising thing in South Korea?
No, surprise incest, but the idea.
That's just.
Again, this circles around to me not being as fucked up by it as y'all. Maybe I have too much experience with other stuff. I don't know.
You're going to want to clarify that statement real fucking fast.
Too much experience in weird shit that's not the weirdest thing I've ever been exposed to. So it's like, I don't know.
Again, you watched a Serbian film. None of us did.
True that.
That set a bar for you that no film can top, and that's exactly why I won't watch it.
But the thing is, I will never watch that again.
I don't know how you watched it once.
I did the prerequisite. Stan needs to watch this at least once, and I did it, and I don't need to see it again.
Ted Patterson tried to convince me that you can't truly judge something until you've seen it, and in this case, he is firmly wrong. I can 100% judge a Serbian film without having seen it.
You can't. You can. I mean, you can read a summary of that and go, "That's fucked up," and still be right.
Yeah. Yeah, Stan, did you have any more discussion topics? Because there's one thing that I really want to talk about whenever we're...
Well, I do have the... are the coolest moments still cool?
Sure.
It's like...
Again.
What we...
Hallway fight.
Also, him
with an
recounting
axe in his back, or the knife in his back.
Also, him recounting his story to the guy by holding him by his tie off the roof.
Great.
Yes, even though I hate the way that the payoff to that joke.
Because we don't know if the dog died.
The dog died, Stan.
We don't know, though. And just the knowledge that we don't know.
The only
makes it
mitigating
worse.
factor to that is the fact that the dog like when you see
Looked
it bound
like-
to clearly
looked like
a stuffed animal. Yes. I mean, yeah, the cool moments are still really fucking cool because Chris, being the wrestling fan here, and me being a casual observer because of the nature of our friendship and our friendship with David Two Dogs Hayes and all the wrestling that we watch, Odaisu straight up Superman punches a guy in that
does.
first street fight,
does.
and
Yeah.
it's fucking awesome.
And most likely in this case, because it's so low budget, most of these hits really hit the people. So it's like the violence and it really happened. So yeah.
I don't know. I trust Korean stuntmen.
So I went to doesthedogdie.com, well, a cat doesn't die, but the consensus is yes, the dog does die.
dog died.
But it's very obvious that it's a stuffed dog toy they use to kill for the kills.
That's the only thing that makes that scene any easier to watch.
And I feel like that might have been on purpose, just to let people be like, it's okay, it's not a real dog.
Right. At the last moment, he swapped out his beloved poodle for a stuffed poodle to die with.
Yes.
The cool stuff 100% is still cool 19, 20 years later.
That's why you still talk about the hallway
Exactly.
fight.
And that's why we still compare it to the likes of The Raid or Daredevil or The Punisher.
Yeah. The hallway fight is actually part of a game. I told Dave about this, a game called Sifu. It's actually part of the first level that you do in that game, where you do your own version of it.
Yeah.
And it even switches to the camera, proper angle, and everything to
The
recreate.
side scroller. Mm-hmm. I mean, and Spike Lee tried to not just recreate the success of that fight, but try to one-up it by in the American remake, setting it in a parking garage where it has levels.
Yep.
And in that film, what you've seen, what if not Odaisu, what is Josh Brolin's character's name in that movie? Do you remember?
George? No.
George, something like that. But having that character fight through multiple levels of a parking garage, I've watched the fight. It's the only part of the movie that I've seen. Not as cool. Doesn't work as well. It's not as visceral as
Because he can get away.
right.
And the other adversaries can move up or move down, and it's like I personally think it's a great, really well staged American violent, scene of violence, and it was also part of Spike Lee's growth into being an action director as well. So it's like so not only could he do straight, we're going to talk a lot between each other and not have many fights, but now he can do fights, and Oldboy was his proof of that, even though he'd done clockers and stuff like that before. But he does accomplish the idea that he does one up the situation, but he doesn't necessarily improve on that moment, because you might have 5 minutes of the parking garage scene in the American Oldboy where you just have 3 minutes, which the first time you see that movie, Oldboy, is that 3 minutes seems a lot longer, because I remember I came in and it's like I watched it, I'm like, oh man, this is good, and then it was done, it was over, and it's like it was much shorter than I remembered it being. But yeah, it's only 3 minutes, but I think the fight in the American version is longer, but because they're dropping down and moving up levels. So and the idea, like you said, it's not as visceral because they can get away, and there's so much space.
What were you going to say, Chris?
I will say this is kind of clever. The main character's name in the American Oldboy is Joe Doucette.
Joe Doucette.
Oh, okay.
Doucette Daisu, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I kind of like that. If you're looking for like the closest American equivalent to the hallway fight, everyone, thanks to the Netflix Marvel shows, Daredevil made it famous, and then literally every one of the Netflix Defenders shows had a hallway fight after that. Did it in all 3 seasons of Daredevil. Did it in the Defenders. Like most of the shows had a hallway fight. All of them, I think. But the best equivalent I can think of is the Punisher fight in the second season of Daredevil when he's in prison.
Yes.
Because that is the most brutal. That is the most brutal fucking fight I have seen in anything modern day Marvel related. It is more violent than anything else in the MCU. and it is glorious to behold.
And the close-ups of the repeated bashings, it's just, and then he's getting up, and he's very, John Bernthal's Punisher is very similar to Odaisu in this, in the fact that he's on the bottom, and then all of a sudden, they stop for a second, and then he pops up, and he's on, and it's like full contact. I think even in that show, and it's American, and there's insurance things going on, but the idea that it's as close to full contact as I think we'll ever get to American fight scenes in that sense.
I also want to say the Korean Oldboy, that hallway fight is so much more of a technical achievement because they were shooting that on film.
Yes.
Whereas like all the Netflix stuff and the American remake of Oldboy, those were all shot digitally.
You're right.
You can shoot for days if you've got a big enough memory card, right? But when you are shooting film, depending on how big the reel is, you could have anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes.
Exactly. Hence the reason why it's 3 minutes and that's all they had, and they couldn't do any more.
I think so. Yeah, I think they literally just burned an entire reel of film just with that fight scene.
And they were legitimately exhausted and tired. Every actor in that scene, in that moment, they were fighting, and they're out of breath. They're hurting. Just like you said, the visceralness of the sound design, the cinematography of it, the shooting of it, and the framing of it. Like Chris said, they just like totally went side scroll with it, and
that's another technical achievement right there, the side scroller aspect, because I can tell you firsthand when it comes to choreographing a fight and participating in a fight, there are certain ways you have to sell things like punches or kicks so that the audience can't see the gap where you're not actually hitting your opponent.
Right.
So, like with theater, you stage it to where you're hitting somebody in the opposite direction of where the audience is sitting. On camera, it's the opposite of where the camera is pointed. If you're punching somebody in the face, you're going to probably put the camera behind the person getting punched and just see the person doing the punching, just see the fist go across their face. Put in a sound effect, the actor sells it, done. In a side-scrolling thing like this, that would be so much harder to hide those gaps.
You can't hold back. You can't stop your punches. You can't hold back your punches or anything because
you can, but you also can't full on punch your opponent.
Exactly.
The amount of thought that had to have gone into the choreography of that fight with him, like hitting the ground, getting back up, turning around, all these angles where the camera would normally see these gaps. Fucking fascinating.
And fabulous.
Yeah. Then again, we've come right back around to talking about the hallway fight again.
So the cool parts are still cool.
Yes.
All right. I want to ask you both one thing real quick. I'm sorry, was that your last topic?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't think I would make it 47 minutes. That's great.
I'm proud of you. Before we wrap up, is there something in your life that you value so much that you would voluntarily let somebody cut off your hand for?
And you don't mean like family.
I don't mean like a family member. I don't mean a loved one. I mean a material possession, because in the actual plot of Oldboy, the guy who runs this like prison tenement that Oh Dai-soo is kept in for 15 years lets Woo Jin cut off his hand to further Woo Jin's revenge plot in exchange for an even bigger prison tenement.
Yes.
He got girls too, I think.
I'm sorry, we're in a very nice. It's not like the greatest digs, but it's a lot better than the office that I was in. We're in a metal building. We got a lot of space. I eventually love to upgrade and have like our own dedicated recording studio, film studio, photography studio, all of this stuff. I'm not going to let somebody cut off my fucking hand.
That sounds nice, but is it left hand or right hand nice?
Exactly.
Because you also have to consider the fact that he had to choose which hand based on which one he feels like he needs more.
Well, which one had the ring on it so that Oh Dai-soo would recognize it?
Here's the idea that all these people are probably hypnotized by the same hypnotist too. So
that doesn't solve everything.
But the thing is, that's probably where we're supposed to. I'm thinking that's got to be, it's like he's
No,
going to get.
because when the dude is telling Odaisu about it, he's like, "Oh yeah," or when Wu Jin is telling Odaisu about it, he's like, "Oh yeah, I made him an offer. He let me cut off his hand in exchange for this bigger building."
Well, no, he also
What?
said, no, he said, did you see the size of the building I had to give him
Yeah.
for that hand?
Can you imagine? All right, a suave businessman, probably been on the cover of Forbes, like a Fortune 500 kind of guy, a 1%er walks up to you and is like, "Hey, listen, let me rap with you about something for a second. I got this revenge plot going against this guy that pissed me off 20 years ago.
Sit down, this will take a while. Sit down, this will
Don't
take a
ask
while.
why. Don't ask questions. Just hear me out on this one, all right? I need you to help me further my revenge plot." Okay, what do I got to do? Do I need to kit? No, hold on. I'm not done yet. I'm still going.
See, that's a nice hand you have there.
You have to let me cut off your hand to make the person who is involved in this revenge plot think that I did this to hurt you. Well, no, fuck you. I'm not giving you my hand. What are you fucking talking about? I'll tell you what. I'll give you a bigger prison tenement torture building. All right, how big are we talking here?
Trump Tower? Are we talking
I
about
got
here?
like 6 stories of prison tenements right now. Are we talking like 10 or above, like skyscraper prison tenements? Because then I might give you my fucking hand. What? What is this?
I'm thinking that's negotiable in a lot of
I
third
would
world
like
countries.
a PS5.
But the thing is, I mean, there are certain people that have been in power lately here. How did they get to that position to be able to be in that much power?
Well, they all have their fucking hands. I can tell you that.
But something else is, and then there's poor guy, he gets caught and gets off in prison, it's like
Jeffrey Epstein?
Epstein had something going
Poor
on.
guy?
Epstein had something going on for
Poor guy.
25 years to, be
You
able
might
to
want to write this
continue-
time code down.
to keep going. So, but the idea that there is
How did you?
there is examples that it's
Are
possible.
Have you been investigating a hand stealing cult? And follow-up question, why did you not include us in this? Could we have been helping you hunt down a hand-stealing cult this entire time?
there's
I'm
research
good.
I did for
I'm
behanding,
good,
so
honestly. I'm good.
You don't want to track down a bunch of hand stealers?
I value my hands because if we get caught, what do you think they're taking?
Right, but if we catch them,
And
then
they're
think of
not-
all the people who aren't going to lose their
Okay,
hands.
but if they catch us, they're taking our hands, and we're not getting tenement buildings for it.
That's a good point. Oh, man, my tummy has a rumbling that only hands can satisfy.
I do not kill people. That is my least favorite thing to do.
Oh, if you don't want to watch...
and it's weird because
That's weird.
That's weird. All right, hold on,
No.
Stan, hold on. If you don't want, listeners, if you listen to this whole discussion and you don't want to go and actually watch Oldboy or its remake, go on YouTube and watch Llamas with Hats instead.
All
because
of it. Watch all of it, yeah.
That's the reference that Chris and I just made. It'll make much more sense there. Stan, let's start wrapping this up. But what was the last thing you were going to say?
I was just gonna. It's weird how much stuff that I'm
Cool with?
cool with, and that I just like put to the side to go and enjoy something.
It's also-
it's like, but then again, it's like I guess I have to do that with the Tarantino stuff I love too, right?
In
It's like,
fairness, Korean Elon Musk made for a good villain.
He did.
oh,
and also...
shit, yeah. And speaking of Elon Musk, he
No,
got his.
we're not. No,
he
we are
got
not.
his,
No.
Twitter.
We are not a current events podcast. I don't give a shit.
That goes
I don't-
along with your hands.
I don't want to talk about Elon Musk
Just
and Twitter.
insert whatever terrible thing Elon Musk did lately here.
Yeah, we're not gonna get into that. Fuck that. You think that's weird for you? I think it's weird the leaps of logic that you make from Jeffrey Epstein
That
to
poor
cutting
guy.
off hands. But
That poor
Well,
guy.
all right.
cutting off hands is a metaphor.
Not in the movie.
It goddamn
It is though.
It goddamn sure is a metaphor, Stan.
It is
For
a
what?
metaphor.
I don't fucking know. Wow. All right. So that wraps up Stan's picks.
So two
Stan's
hands up.
psychotic.
Two hands straight up. We've talked about Lord of the Rings. We've talked about Almost Famous. Those were the before times. And then we watched the
You
host.
notice this was a trick.
There was
He lured us
one
in.
movie that Chris liked.
He lured us in with two
technically
relatively innocuous films, and then he swerved us with the host.
Then he locked us in a suitcase and sent us to South Korea.
Yes. So coming up next, we're going to be talking May, June, July, and August. We'll be discussing Chris's 4 Perfect 10 films.
Hey,
And
do you
I
feel
know
like
what
a palate cleanser?
Yeah, and I know what they are, and we're going to be taking like a weird turn into relative normalcy coming up next month. So that's going to be fun. You got that to look forward to. And also, Chris, I hope you've been practicing the intro more than Stan did.
I'll toss it to you or do whatever you want me to do.
Stan, if people want to discuss more about the plot to steal people's hands with you online,
That would be
that's the perfect.
Find me on
fucking-
Twitter.
That's the perfect fucking place to do it. Hand Stealer 69. Mr. Slice your. You've heard of Mr. Steal Your Girl. Well, now we got
Mr. Steal
Mr.
Your-
Slice Your Hand Off 426.9.
Mr. Steal Your Hands.
See, this is why I'm saying, it's like you guys think I'm so disgusting, man.
I never said that out loud.
I don't think you're disgusting, but now I suspect you
I'm
might
questionable.
You might cut off people's hands. Chris,
Maybe I gathered them and it's like the hair thing, you know. It's like, you know, I bring hands back for people that are missing their hands, you know. So maybe I'm philanthropizing.
There's a whole podcast worth of stuff just to unpack.
How is
what
this the
that
weirdest
said.
part of the podcast?
Yeah, like we would need to do another hour just to unpack what you just said. Chris, if people want to reach out to you for a witness statement about anything Stan has said, where can they do that at?
Oh, let's do it on Twitter at Chris the OK.
Okay. And if you want to reach out to me online or follow me online, the best place to do that is on Instagram at DB Hensley. It's not very interesting. It's pictures of dogs and alcohol. That's basically it. If you want to keep up with Long Walk
I can
Productions,
send you some hands.
please.
Pictures of hands.
You know, all right, real quick aside, because the plot of A Behanding in Spokane, which I mentioned earlier, involves Stan's character having a suitcase full of hands, we commissioned a friend of ours who is a special effects artist to make us a whole bunch of severed hands
have
in
a
a
ton of them.
suitcase. So yeah, we did. We don't anymore, but we did at one point have a suitcase full of severed hands. Anyway, if you want to keep up with Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us, or you can search for Long Walk Productions and Long Walk Podcasts on Facebook. To see more of our original works or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming, you can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show or any of the shows on the Long Walk Podcast Network, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
Peace out.
I'm sorry, my first thought was if you enjoy this show, why?